So today is World Maternal Mental Health Day. I was on a panel earlier today talking about the importance of maternal mental health, and I saw an article today that's a pre-release article through BMC Women's Health. So Shit McKee et al., the lead author, and it's a retrospective study from 2006 to 2015 in the United States, looking at 39 million births. And what shocked me was just seeing the rate of increase of these disorders such as depression and anxiety just occurring within a decade. In Australia, when we're looking at what we're thinking is happening at the moment, now, there are around 309,000 births per year in Australia. More than half of those mothers suffer from very significant fatigue. 40% describe feeling overwhelmed, depressed, or anxious in the first 3 months. And in Australia, they're thinking about 1 in 5 mothers has perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. That comes at a huge cost to the economy and a huge cost to our society. 50% of those mothers don't get treated, and that costs the Australian economy about $1 billion per year. And of those mothers treated, that also costs about $433 million per year in terms of loss of income and loss of finance through the economy. So it's and then there are the sort of social implications which are very hard to measure financially. Part of the issue is that the definition of postnatal is actually missing a lot of mothers. So these statistics are just catching those mothers who fall into the 6 months or less definition of postnatal mood disorder. And if you're having issues after 6 months, you're not included in these statistics. And there's a very important study that came out in 2014 that described the peak incidence of depression postnatally was at 4 to 5 years after the birth of the child, not within that first sort of 6 months. And so we know that there are probably more women who experience this who aren't getting the correct label definition and definitely not getting the correct support if that's the case. I remember a talk I heard from Jack Ma, who was the ex-CEO of Alibaba, and he said something that really got me thinking a lot around mothers, and it wasn't necessarily the topic of his talk by any means, but he talked about hiring people into his company. And as you know, Alibaba is like Amazon, but in Asia. It's a very, very large company. And he was saying that initially they would just be hiring staff on their IQ. And after time, they started realizing they needed more than that, and they started hiring staff on their EQ, or their emotional quotient. And towards the end of his time there, he was saying that they're actually starting to hire staff on their LQ, their love quotient. And it really got me thinking, going, well, where did I learn my IQ? And that was through the schooling system mainly. EQ, who teaches that? And EQ is often, you learn that through social interaction with your family, friends, your inner circle, as it were. And when you're looking at LQ, who really teaches a human being how to love? And the primary part of that is taught from the mother to the child. That foundation of how to love is taught by the mother. And then you have other family members and fathers and care providers that can then teach the child some of the subtleties and other flavors around love. But that core foundation comes from the mother. And that really when that kind of sank in with me, it's like, wow, mothers are actually teaching humans how to love. There could not be a more important job out there than that. And when we're seeing mothers who are really struggling and who are experiencing increasing amounts of mental health disorders and distress, and not being supported, they're going to really struggle to be able to really turn up to do that critical part of that job, if you like. And so when mothers are unsupported, they can experience anxiety, they can experience overwhelm, depression, judgment by others, judgment by self, fatigue, and often can feel very isolated, especially with kind of the modern nuclear family. When a mother is experiencing that, a child is much more likely to be growing up less certain about themselves, learning more fear, and as an adolescent, they're going to struggle with that whole sense of belonging, and so they're going to be more likely to engage in risky behaviors. They're more likely to look at addiction and drugs in terms of helping with that sort of sense of belonging. But when you look at a healthy mother care model where mothers are supported and don't experience those things, then a child learns how to attach, it learns how to feel secure, and it learns how to love in a much deeper way. Then as an adolescent, they have a much better sense of belonging, and then as an adult, they have a much clearer sense of purpose, and can really contribute and serve in society in a much different and healthier way. So in terms of coming back to this idea of Maternal Mental Health Day today, I think one of the things we really need to do is acknowledge the mothers who are struggling. It really takes a village to raise a mother, and when a mother is struggling and isolated and not supported, it's never the fault of the mother that's occurring. I think a great thing about having a day like today too is also we can really acknowledge how much this culture needs to change in terms of how it views mothers, how it values mothers. We really need to get mothering onto the GDP and acknowledge that as something that we're looking at. If you just had a look at breastfeeding alone, in Australia, 44 million litres of breast milk are produced every year, and the cost of that, if you were to look at it from financial terms, has been estimated around $3 billion every year, and that doesn't even take into account all the health benefits that the child receives from that in terms of disease prevention, those kind of things. So, and I think we also need to understand that our medical system needs to develop to be more inclusive and adaptive for the needs of mothers, because again, I don't believe there's a more important job than teaching another human how to love. I don't think there's a more important job out there than growing a baby, birthing a baby, feeding a baby, and then being, like I said, such a key, important role in that early developmental time.